everybody. My name is Max Defa, and today I'll be talking about corruption and fraud in the Philippines and whether or not technology can provide a better corruption-free future in the Philippines. But before I jump into my topic, I'd like to say thank you to my academic mentor, Dr. Andre Lambelet. Without your constant guidance and help, I would not be where I am today. Thank you. So the Philippines. The Philippines is composed of roughly 7,100 islands. With a population of about 109 million people, it is often self-described as the most democratic state in Southeast Asia. So what is corruption and what is fraud? Corruption is the abuse of entrusted power for private gain or the dishonest, fraudulent conduct by those in power, typically involving bribery. Fraud, on the other hand, is to cheat. The offense of intentionally deceiving someone in order to gain an unfair or legal advantage, financial, political, or otherwise. Now, the Philippines has a very long history with struggling with corruption and fraud. There's very deeply rooted corruption, but specifically what I will be looking at is elections in the Philippines. And elections and how they're facing an ongoing battle and remaining politically integral. Some of the common tactics that we see surrounding elections are ballot buying, ballot box substitution, targeted voting, physical intimidation, and the list goes on and on. So what is political integrity? Political integrity exists when the process to elect, appoint, or select those who hold power is free from undue influence of vested interests. The Philippines struggles to maintain its political integrity simply due to the size of the issue. Media within the Philippines aids in compromising elections, flooding the country with influence directly through those who have vested interests. And this is possible between the relationship with the media and the government in the Philippines and the control that the government has over the media in the Philippines. So how does this persist in general? Corruption and fraud reaches almost all branches of the Philippine government, making containing and combating fraud that much more difficult. So the government does not really have control of the issue. And as an impoverished country, when better opportunities of financial gain presents itself, it is taken. For example, citizens who have been waiting all day in line to go cast their votes, being offered money to take their place in line or vote for them, sounds like a very good idea compared to waiting in scorching heat. And because of this, due to poverty, vote buying finds itself to be very effective. So moving forward, biometric registration was made mandatory for citizens to vote in 2016. A third party, biometric company, was brought in. Biometric registration ensures that every citizen is individually accounted for by unique traits. Specifically, this means identified by fingerprint, focal identification, or a retinal scan, essentially anything that cannot be fraudulent. The company that was brought in by the Philippines in 2016 was called Smartmatic. Smartmatic aided in providing biometric registration for all the citizens of the Philippines. Smartmatic as a company states that elections are the cornerstone of democracy. Protecting their integrity is the core of what we do. We help election commissions to protect the will of the voters by providing solutions that combine multiple layers of protections and safeguards and guarantee legitimate outcomes. Essentially, Smartmatic's goal is to ensure a secure and safe electoral process. Now, the 2016 elections didn't quite play out how they were expected to play out. So this relationship between Smartmatic and the Filipino government was made to promote political integrity. And it did. The relationship was a huge step in identification and technology. Although prior to vote casting in the 2016 elections, biometric registration was denounced entirely, even repealed, allowing traditional methods to take place again, which effectively set the grounds for a fraudulent election in which Rodrigo Duterte won. Fast forward several years to the 2019 senatorial elections, Smartmatic was again brought in to ensure the integrity of the election. Biometrics were to be used in this election for identification as well as casting. So the main difference here is in 2016, you needed to biometrically register as a citizen in order to go vote, And in 2019, the main difference would be, as a biometrically registered citizen, you had to go double verify biometrically before casting your vote. And this was to ensure all votes were cast by registered citizens and were only cast once by that registered citizen. So this would effectively eliminate all methods of fraud on a ground level. The results were similar to the 2016 results, where they were not as expected. Despite the purchase and implementation of over 90,000 Smartmatic satellite beacons, the 2019 elections faced large amounts of corruption and fraud. Due to claims of hacking, traditional methods were once again accepted in the 2019 senatorial elections, which again set up effective methods for manipulation of the results. 10 out of the 11 seats were filled by Duterte-backed candidates. So why the Philippines? Why biometric technology, and why Smartmatic? Because in the 2019 elections, I worked for Smartmatic in the Philippines as a satellite technician. My job there was to ensure beacons were functioning properly. My team of 11 and myself were in charge of monitoring over 93,000 beacons across 7,000 islands. Being based in Manila, our main objective was to monitor the activation bandwidth being used through the beacons. And this would tell us whether or not the beacons were being turned on in the first place and what they were being used for, whether they were being used for its intended purpose or whether they were just being used for internet. When Duterte claimed fears of hacking, our jobs were essentially compromised, and it completely removed months of preparation work, and it removed all the work that we had done while there. So why do I still vouch for biometrics? It's because I've seen them firsthand. Biometrics and their benefits in developing countries have massive potential. Individual identification proves to be essential come elections. It allows for identification in geographically sparse areas such as the Philippines, where you have 93,000 different voting beacons across 7,000 islands. This biometrics allows for true identification of the civilian. Biometric technology not only provides concrete results, but it also inspires hope amongst the people in the casting of the vote. It ensures that their vote is authentic and essentially is a democratic driver. Smartmatic in particular allows for the secure transfer of information via satellite, and that is just one more benefit to the biometric transfer. So what would full implementation of Smartmatic look like in the Philippines? In order to understand what full implementation of Smartmatic would look like in the Philippines, we must understand the scope of the problems the Philippines are facing. Through deeply rooted corruption and many years of manipulation and fraud, it makes it very difficult to tackle the issue as a whole. In order for full implementation of Smartmatic in the Philippines, beacons must be monitored, preferably by a third party, someone with no incentive to cheat. And the new system must be promoted through local government, not denounced through the media. Smartmatic proves to be effective, solving an integral piece of a large puzzle, if allowed. So full implementation would eliminate fraud on the ground level entirely, and integrity through technology pushes the country into development, regardless of whether it wants to or not. So all in all, the Philippines needs a massive overall change, including quality of life. The first step is combating corruption and fraud on a civilian level, and this can be done through biometric technology. Although a very small thing to implement, it has profound effects on the things around it. So essentially, biometrics provide a solution for eliminating fraud during the voting process. Not only do they provide a solution for eliminating fraud, they provide potential for restructuring the government democratically. Technology can indeed provide a better path to a corruption-free future. And this matters because if solutions like this can be implemented in the Philippines, where corruption and fraud runs rampant, it provides hope for developing countries elsewhere. Thank you very much for listening to my Keystone presentation. If you have any further questions, do not hesitate to email me. Thank you very much.